Hi, hello. It's been quite a while, I think. I feel like every time I make a new video, my hair color is always changing. Yeah, that's probably because I rarely film these days. Just work and just life happens, and I don't know, I do want to keep this as one of my priorities, but it's quite hard to do. But anyway, enough of the chatting. Today I'll be doing sort of a wrap-up video of all the books that I've read so far this year. So yeah, I guess we'll just get straight into it. Unfortunately, this year has been one of my, I don't know if I should say worst reading year. Probably worst because in terms of quantity of what I've read and also quality. Let's just face the truth. At this point in time, I've only finished 5 books in total this year. I mean, this is the amount that most booktubers read in like a month. So it's quite shameful. You would think if I read less, maybe I focused on books that I had quite high expectations on, but honestly, the books I picked up this year were really random and kind of not thought out. A lot of the time it was a little disappointing. I only read 5 books at this point in time. I am currently reading another book, but yeah, I haven't finished it yet. But anyway, let's get straight into the video. So the very first book that I finished this year was actually in January. I read it really quickly. It is Promise of Blood by McClellan. This is part of the Powder Mage trilogy. Right off the bat, I actually really liked this book, and it has remained my favorite book of this year. Not that it has much to compare to or compare against. It's a flintlock fantasy book. I think this is the first flintlock fantasy that I've read ever. There's a lot I liked about this book. The main thing is like the magic system. The magic system is very unique. Maybe it's been done before, but at least I haven't read anything of this particular sub-genre. So yeah, I really like the unique magic system in it and the world building. The characters were very interesting too. It's a multiple point of view book. So the book starts off in a coup to overthrow the king of this realm, and the king is sort of like a useless king, very corrupt, using all the resources just to benefit him and not really thinking for the people that he's ruling. So our main character, well, we have 3 main characters and 3 points of view that we follow throughout this book. One being Field Marshal Tamas. He's a military commander who right from the beginning, he's a part of this coup and he has just overthrown the king. There is all this other sort of political stuff going on, and it was great. The other point of view that we follow from is a private investigator hired by Tamas. His name is Adamant, and he follows sort of like this mystery plot line in the book. There is this underlying mystery throughout the book, and you're kind of trying to solve it with this character, Adamant. He's kind of like an ex-military person. I'm really bad at explaining today. Lastly, the other character we follow is Taniel, but he's the son of Tamas, and he's one of the most powerful powder mages in this realm, Tamas being one of the most powerful powder mages as well. Don't want to say too much more about the story, but it has a ton of action. It's very fast paced. The magic system, more than anything, was the factor that I really was intrigued by. There's like 3 types of magic wielders in this world. One being the privileged, who use magic in more of a traditional sense, where they're drawing power from this else thing. I don't know how to explain it, and to be honest, it's been many months since I've read this, so the details are blurring in my head a little bit. But yes, the privileged, they use more traditional magic and they draw power from what's called the else, and yeah, they use that in battle and stuff like that. It's crazy. Next is powder mages. They can manipulate gunpowder, they can direct bullets, make bullets go long distance and stuff like that, and they can also like inhale gunpowder. It enhances their senses and makes them stronger and stuff like that. It's an odd magic system, but also very unique. Unique is the word I would say. With the privileged, there's also people called Mage breakers. Wait, is it Mage breaker? Yeah, I think they're called Mage breakers. And they basically give up their ability as a privileged, and instead it turns them into something that does the complete opposite. They kind of warp away all the magic. So the privileged can't use magic around Mage breakers, and they can't hurt Mage breakers with magic. The last sort of magic system they have in this book is people with the knack, and the knack is basically just ordinary people with more enhanced abilities. There is a character in particular who has a knack of not needing to sleep. Yeah, they're like all these sort of random abilities that aren't super powerful, but they're useful. I reckon overall it was a really strong first book. It definitely got me very intrigued to continue on with the trilogy. There's a lot more that happens. There's a lot of intertwining stories that happen, and it's really cool. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. More than anything, it was very entertaining, and I do like this sort of high fantasy. I did hear a few booktubers talking about this. I was intrigued, and it didn't disappoint me. Definitely give it a read if you're into fantasy. So the next book that I finished was in April, and it is Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. I think this is part of a trilogy or a series. Unfortunately, I was not too impressed with this book. It wasn't bad, but there was nothing special or memorable about it. It follows a young girl called Evie who's lost her childhood friend via drowning. Sam! Shh. Anyway, so seriously, oh god, I'm just gonna try and ignore Sam. Whatever. Sam needs to calm down. Look how much he's grown. He was a puppy back in the days. Anyway, I'll let him wander around this room, let him calm down a bit. Basically, this story follows a young girl who's lost a friend in the sea in the past. This new girl enters her life. This new girl... Okay, let's leave now. You better not be barking. Go. This new girl comes into a village and she resembles the friend that died physically, and she decides to embark on this journey of friendship with this mysterious girl. Again, there is this underlying sort of mystery and secret that this girl is hiding, and then they get involved with these 2 princes that are from the realm. I mean, the 2 princes were their childhood friends, but now that they're a bit more grown up, things get a little complicated, relationships are formed, and things just get out of hand. It's just not what I was really anticipating, nor the direction of plotline story that I wanted. So yeah, kind of underwhelming. It's supposed to be sort of a dark, tragic retelling of the Sea Witch of Little Mermaid. I expected something very different from this story, and what I got was a bit lackluster. From memory, the writing was okay, it's just that the storyline wasn't that intriguing. Yeah, and it kind of put me on a reading slump. Like, I took way too long to read this book. Many months were wasted trying to finish this. So I basically gave this one a 2-star out of 5 on Goodreads. Wouldn't recommend, and I definitely don't think I would be continuing with this series at all. Like, no interest, unfortunately. So yeah, the next book I read was in May, and it was not much better than the previous book. I did enjoy it a little bit more, and it is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ngan. This book has been buzzing around BookTube recently. I got it from Alcrate. I ran out of memory, so I don't know what I was talking about before, but I'll try and continue. I was a little disappointed with this book too. This one had quite the buzz earlier on this year. Was it earlier on this year, or was that at the end of last year? Anyway, that being said, it has been around BookTube, and I have heard pretty, well, semi-mixed things, but mostly positive things about this book. I haven't really read a lot of the books that I received from our crate, so I did want to make those books a priority. But yeah. Hi! So I'm gonna just pause past Carolyn right there. While editing this video, I realized that I was sort of a bumbling mess the other day. Don't know why. Maybe it's because I just came off a night shift and then I just couldn't articulate my words properly. Anyway, it was sort of a mess. I'm just gonna sneakily add this portion of the video into my wrap up. So, Girls of Paper and Fire. It is a YA fantasy book. Sorry if you can hear Sam. He's like sniffing and I don't know what he's doing, but he's making some funny noises. Girls of Paper and Fire is an Asian-inspired fantasy story about a girl named Lai. Still don't know how to say her name properly. Anyways, she lives in a far-off village and then one day she gets taken against her will to become a paper girl. In this realm, every year the king chooses 8 beautiful women to become his paper girls. Essentially, these girls are concubines for the king. However, on this particular year, the 8 girls are already chosen, but our main character has a certain quality. She has these bright golden eyes that's quite unique and exotic in this world, mainly because she is a human. In this world, they have class systems, so there's paper caste who are humans, there are moon caste who are demons, so they've basically got animalistic features, and then they have a steel caste who are a mix of both human and animal. So the paper caste are the lowest form of class, and then the demons who are the moon caste are like the highest. So the king is a moon caste, is basically a bull. Being a paper girl is not something to be desired. There are certain girls that are groomed from an early age to become a paper girl for mainly political reasons, but our main character, she was just taken against her will, and yeah, it's not a good thing. He's really abusive and just not a good king. Although he appears to his people as someone who is respectable, but inside the court, everyone sort of knows that he's very abusive to his paper girls and just, he's a villain. I'm actually gonna stick with the rating that I gave, but I just wanted to add some extra thoughts I had on the book because I just didn't explain it properly the other day. There are a lot of positive stuff that I found in this book. While I didn't think that this book was incredibly amazing, there were a lot of things that I thought were well done. I appreciated that, you know, the author covered these sort of topics within this book. The first thing is the author for this book is biracial. She creates this fantasy world which is heavily inspired by Chinese Malaysian culture, and being a part of the book community, we kind of seek out diversity more these days, and especially me being an Asian, I rarely see Asian representation in YA fantasy, so it's nice to see this sort of book representing that. I mean, it's not like we have none, but it's quite rare. A lot of the times the main characters of European descent and the fantasy setting is more on the European side of things. It was nice to see a setting where it was more based on a different sort of culture. Also, another thing is that there is a forbidden romance that develops and forms between the main character and another female character. So again, there's this queer romance. It was nice to see a different take on the romantic aspects of this fantasy book. Usually the main character would be from a poor village and she gets whisked away into this kingdom, and then she ends up falling in love with the king, the prince, whatever. But in this book, the author flips that trope, and this relationship was pretty solid. Even though it's sort of insta-lovey, it was still cute, and the king is definitely portrayed as a villain. There is no romantic tension there with the king at all. He is clearly just a straight up problematic and abusive ruler, especially to these paper girls. The author writes about sexual assault and how a character can rise up against
that and develops their own agency, which I thought was very powerful. What I wanted more from the book was the world building. It was definitely heavily inspired by Asian culture, but it wasn't developed properly. You didn't get to see much of the world. You just hear about what's happening outside of this palace rather than seeing it from the character's point of view. It's understandable because our main character is stuck within the confines of the palace because she is a paper girl. She's not allowed to go out. But hopefully in the next few books that can be expanded upon, because I think it's a very interesting and cool setting for a fantasy book. There are a lot of other flaws within the book that bumped down the rating a bit for me. Like I said, there were a lot of fantastic themes and messages that were intertwined with this book that I really, more than anything, just appreciated. It was sort of lacking in the plot line a bit. Yeah, I think I think that's it. I will pass it back to past Carolyn. Alright, we'll continue with the video.
It could be triggering because there is definitely sexual assault. It's just pretty dark at times. I do agree while I was reading it. In fact, you know, a funny story. This is sidetracking. I was waiting for a train and I was just like reading it and then like a bird pooped onto my book. Like this has never happened before, but I was like so disgusted and disappointed, and now like my book is stained. It grosses me out because it was like a pretty big bird poo, and it happened to be on a scene where the king was assaulting our main character. Maybe it was nature just saying something about the situation. There's a lot of other political things going on, little political intrigue here and there, nothing too complex. I guess the main kind of drive of this story is like the characters and this sort of romance. The world wasn't fully fleshed out. The main character was kind of boring. Yeah, there wasn't much. I would hope the next books in the series might get a little bit more interesting, talk more about the world, more about the politics and what's going on. It ended on a pretty big cliffhanger, but despite that, I'm not very intrigued to continue on with this book either. I did give it a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I did enjoy it more than Sea Witch, but that is not saying anything because I didn't really like that book. I had more of a high expectation because I did hear a few good reviews about this book and it was kind of a letdown. So the next book that I read, I finished it in June. Tiger Lily by Jodi, Lynn Anderson. This book, it's been years, but back in the days, this was all the buzz. Everyone was reading it. It was supposed to be this sad and tragic retelling of Peter Pan. Well, Peter Pan and Tiger Lily. The main focal point of this story is Tiger Lily. It follows Tiger Lily. It is not from the point of view of her, but instead from the point of view of Tinkerbell. It was kind of interesting to see the story from her point of view, so you never get in the heads of either Tiger Lily or Peter Pan or any other characters. You're solely following Tinkerbell as she's observing what's happening in the village in Neverland. It was very beautiful. I actually really liked this book. I think I went into it with an open mind that I might not actually like it. Maybe it's because the last 2 YA books have disappointed me. This book I've actually had for years, but I never read it. I don't know why. I just wasn't in the mood. Who knows? It was kind of that sort of tragic, sad book. Nothing very intense happened, but it was kind of like a brewing romance, but then it also sort of ends tragically, but in a good way. It's basically following the story of how Tiger Lily and Peter Pan met. It's more focused on their story before Wendy and the other kids come into the picture. It mainly focuses on the village that she lives in and just her relationship with Peter Pan and how that develops with the Lost Boys. Also, what I appreciated about Tiger Lily is that Tiger Lily is not the typical YA girls. She's very stocky, a little cold, she's closed off physically, she's not considered beautiful, like in the typical sense. She was just a bit odd. At times I thought it was a bit unnerving. She was a strange child. I liked it. I don't really want to say much about it, just that it's a Peter Pan retelling focusing on Tiger Lily and their sort of relationship development. I'm kind of contradicting myself because the previous book that I talked about, I didn't really want the focus to be on the characters, but this book, it's focused on the characters. As I was reading it, it kind of had a more realistic portrayal of these characters, like in a sense that it was less fantastical. Although Neverland is the same, the people on the island, they don't age. There are magical elements to the story, but it was more grounded in realism. It was sad, but it was touching. It was just a cohesive little tight-knit story. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I liked it so much that the next book I chose to read was another Peter Pan retelling. It's another book that I read in June. It's The Child Thief by Brom. Wait, is it just Brom? Seriously? I've had this book for a few years now as well, and it is a darker retelling of the Peter Pan story. You're basically following a 14-year-old boy named Nick, and he kind of gets swept away into Neverland by this elfish boy named Peter. You think that he's bringing him to escape his really messed up life in the real world, to take him to this fantastical world of promises of never growing old and experiencing adulthood and the tragedy of adulthood and stuff like that. False promises. In a sense, he wasn't really lying. There is adventure to be had, but basically Peter is kidnapping children to fight like a battle that's happening in Neverland, and these kids are like kind of tricked into coming to Neverland. It's definitely darker, it's a lot more gruesome, and I think it does get pretty violent at times. There's a lot of adult themes in it, but definitely it was a creative, more dark and twisted take on Peter Pan. I did appreciate that Peter was a bit more mischievous and he was not that good of a guy. Like, he definitely did care for his lost boys somewhat, but he was selfish and he wanted to fight for this cause that these kids just didn't sign up for that. Neverland, it definitely has a very atmospheric vibe. I appreciated that. There is this looming threat of this disease that's just killing Neverland and all the magic in it. I did enjoy it. I think I initially gave it 4 stars, but looking back at it, I didn't enjoy it that much. Like, it didn't give me the same feels as Tiger Lily did. I did appreciate the darkness and the different take on Peter Pan. I did like certain elements in it. I think the characters could have been a little bit more developed. I did actually like the character of Nick. I did like following his perspective. The character of Peter Pan was very intriguing. The Lost Boys, kind of a little underdeveloped. There's a whole other storyline with other creatures in Neverland that I wish I had more of. I would have liked to have seen more of that story or that element more. As much as I enjoyed it, I didn't feel like it deserves a 4-star rating, so I kind of reduced it to a 3.5 star. Like, I liked it, but it wasn't amazing. It's just not as great as I was hyping it up to be in my head, because I thought I'd really like this because I like dark retellings of fairy tales, but this was just like, it wasn't what I expected it to be, if you know what I mean. I don't know. Anyway, so that was it. That was my 5th and final book that I read so far. I feel like a lot of the YA books that I read this year, it's just average, and that's a shame because I usually do like YA. I guess I have to be a bit more choosy with what I pick, but I also have a lot of stuff that I need to get through, so help me. Oh god. So that's it for this video. I'm sorry that I was kind of a little all over the place. Like, I thought I had it all cohesively in my mind, but then, like, yeah, I just started rambling here and there. I hope it made sense. 2 out of the 5 that I read were really good. The other 3 were sort of average. Anyway, until the next video, thanks for watching. Bye!